Yeah! This is a proud presentation of Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network.
Live in the studio.
It's time for the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Live from Wings, etc. Hear the Coaches Show each week on SEMO ESPN 1220. And also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Also watch the Red Hawks Coaches Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now, let's go live to Wings, etc. For the Red Hawks Coaches Show.
And we welcome you in live to the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau. We will, by the way, be in the Jackson location next week, so we hope that you'll join us over in Jackson. We're going to be talking Red Hawk hoops with Red Hawks head coach Rick Ray, and a little bit later on in the show, believe it or not, baseball season starts in 4 days, and Red Hawks baseball coach Andy Sawyers is in the house. And we will talk some Red Hawk baseball. SEMO headed down to Monroe, Louisiana to take on the War Hawks from the University of Louisiana Monroe. And I don't believe, I know at least in the last 20-plus years, they haven't played Louisiana Monroe in baseball. So this may be the first ever meeting in baseball between these two teams. They play in the Sun Belt Conference. We will talk with Coach Andy Sawyers coming up. Coach Rick Ray is here. What were your weekend plans that didn't involve being at the Show Me Center?
Usually there is no weekend plans. You just try to make sure we squeeze in some time to play with my boys. So we got some football in because it was warm. So went out in the backyard, got some tackle football in, and then went to the Show Me Center and played some basketball. So that's what I normally do on Sundays. I get up and I watch film early in the morning. Then I just try to spend as much time as I can with them just playing. So
Deacon and Mason, now obviously they like basketball. I see them out there on the floor shooting, but they're big football fans too.
Yeah, they actually like football more than basketball. So
really?
Yeah, and that's fine. I always say my kids. I got a 26-year-old daughter. I got obviously Deacon who's 9 now and Mason who's 6. I could care less what sport they play. I just want them to be active. So to me, just as much as they can get involved in, no specialization and things like that. So, we had to actually cut out a couple sports for them because it was just too much. And I know Deacon had been really good in soccer but decided not to play soccer anymore so he could play basketball and football and run track, whereas Mason, his favorite sport is actually soccer. And so he's been doing that now. So he focusing on soccer and those things like that. So it's just so many things that they can do. And they got a track program that they're in. So they're just always outside.
That's good.
Yes. Yes.
So that's it seems like that's old school. Back in our generation, we were always outside playing. Now it's video games and there are a lot of parents I know that you almost have to force their kids to go outside and play.
Yeah, well, the unique thing is in our neighborhood, when we had a kind of a neighborhood block party, I had no idea that there was that many kids in the neighborhood because I'd never see them outside playing. And then also when I was younger, I would take Deacon to some of those practices when he was in kindergarten and first grade. And Mason was 2 years old, 3 years old, and obviously while Deacon was practicing, I'd play with Mason. And so we played whatever he wanted to play. And so the parents would come over and say, hey, he can do this already or catch or kick or whatever, dribble already. And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, well, what do you do with them? I said, we go outside and play. And then they were asking about training. There's no training. I said, what do you guys want to do? And they said, we want to throw the frisbee. We throw the frisbee. We want to hit the ball off the tee. We hit the ball off the tee. There's no training. We just go outside and play.
So are they interested in baseball at all?
Yeah, they play baseball. They play t-ball. So they had to make a decision whether they're going to play baseball or play run track in the summertime. So we kind of, once they get to that age, we let them decide what they want to do as long as they're doing something.
Now, if you look at the national trend, and in fact, I do a lot of Jackson High School football games on Friday nights when they don't conflict with SEMO football. Over the last several years, we've been up in the St. Louis area, and I've been talking to some athletic directors and parents when Jackson will play a St. Louis school, and they say they have really seen the numbers go down in football because there is a fear now of the concussion situation and the injury protocol. Is that something that you think about as a parent? Every parent probably has to at least give it some thought. Is that something mom has some input in, or are you just, if they want to play football, they can play football?
Yeah, mom has already said that football is not happening.
Okay.
So she's already made that determination.
So that's kind of why I was asking.
Yeah, and then there's such a fear of like what's going on with the CTE and the concussions and the fear of injury. Right now they're playing flag. So she really almost didn't even want them to play flag because she didn't want them to get the bug. And now they want to get to the point where they're playing tackle football. But your older son, Deacon, is a little bit less athletic but more skilled, whereas the younger one is more athletic and bigger and stronger. So it's going to be hard, because I always say high school football coaches are the most relentless recruiters in America.
Oh, yeah.
They see a big, strong kid walking through the hallways. They're going to badger that person for 4 years until they come out and play football. So with Mason being how big and strong and fast he is, I think it's going to be hard for him not to end up playing football at some point in time. But, that's a battle we don't have to worry about right now.
All right, the battle you had on Saturday night at the Show Me Center was with Tennessee Tech. And they end up winning the game 62-60. They led throughout the game. At one point built up a 12-point lead. So you're playing catch-up most of the game, but you were always within arm's length of them. You just could never get over the hump. What are your thoughts now as you kind of look back on it? I know you have initial thoughts. I don't know if your thoughts change occasionally when you do break down some film, but what are your thoughts on the Tennessee Tech game?
Well, obviously everyone wants to look toward the end of the game and whether you got calls or not have calls or what transpired at the end of the game. But to me, that game was lost with our start. And it's something that we really talked about and something that really disappointed me because we said, hey, we have momentum now from the Jacksonville State game. And so now we've got to get off to a great start. And I showed our guys our stats. I mean, teams have been shooting 51% from the field against us in OVC play, but we held Jacksonville State to 39% from the field. We had been a -4 in rebounding in games, but we were a +5 against Jacksonville State. So I said, don't get this thing twisted. This is the reason why we won the game was because of our defense and the way we rebounded the basketball. So we got to have another performance like that in order for us to beat Tennessee Tech. And so for us to be in a situation where I have to have mass substitution at the beginning of the game because they scored 17 points in 5 minutes. I mean, 17 points in 5 minutes,
and they're not a big offense.
No, so we weren't locked into defense, and so that was the thing to me. That's where the game was lost. Is like at the beginning of it, we weren't locked into what we needed to do in order for us to be successful on the defensive end. Now, our guys, the way we defended in the beginning of the second half was phenomenal because we didn't score either. I mean, it was hard to watch as far as like no one was scoring, but you give yourself a chance to win games when you defend like that, irregardless of what's going on with your offense. So those were my initial takes from it.
The way that the game ended, fans that were there, they're going to be looking at that particular scenario. So they come down. I don't know what you saw on video. I just remember watching it live. We got a good look. They call a foul. A guy is up there trying to run up a shot. There was one on the shot clock. You could clearly see one was on the shot clock. So it looked like he got the shot away, and then the foul came in, or at least the whistle came in. He kind of fell down on the, whether it was a flop or not. What were your thoughts when you go back and watch that particular play?
Yeah, well, it's so hard because – to me, and I know you shouldn't call the game differently at the end of the game, but there's two things that really have to go into play there. First of all, is 1 second on the shot clock. The second thing is I thought that the guy initiated contact. I thought our guy went straight up. And there was contact, but I thought he initiated.
And before the season started, didn't the NCAA mandate that officials start really zeroing in on who initiates the contact? Now, that was a big talking point before the season started, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge talking point because now, I mean, I was just talking about some of the things with the NBA. I mean, it's almost unwatchable at times because it's just one guy up at the top dribbling around with 4 guys just standing. The only guy that ever moves might come up and set a high ball screen, and that's it. I mean, so they want to know why the viewership is down in the NBA because it's not fun to watch, James Harden dribble the ball 900 times and take 40 shots. I mean, and everybody's doing it. Lillard plays that way. I mean, Trae Young plays that way. It's just hard to watch. And then you're trying to get your college guys or high school guys to say, hey, you got to cut, move, and feel. And they're like, why? I watch the NBA and those guys just stand around. I mean, because they're different. So, but to me, there was a situation, hey, did he initiate contact? Did we actually foul? It's questionable. Sure. But at the end of the day, they called it. But I just saw something like that. When you're trying to decide a game, you let the players decide.
Have you seen, personally, the whoever initiates contact emphasis, have you seen it a difference this year than last year? A mild difference, a big difference, no difference? What do you see?
Yeah, I've seen a difference, and it's always about, I mean, at that point in time, everybody, you can't rule out personalities of officials. Yeah. I mean, to say that they're robots is just ridiculous. Everybody has thoughts and everybody has feelings on it. And it is difficult sometimes to see, especially when you got the guys flopping. Like, they got that call right. The guy got a shot off against Tennessee Tech where he kicked his leg out, and he initiated the contact.
We hadn't seen that call all year, though.
Yeah, and it was the right call.
I agree.
I mean, and so Alex Caldwell, he got it called on him when we were at Drake, and it was the right call when he kicked his leg out. So, to me, it's always about giving the defense a chance to be a defense. And everybody now, obviously, the mandate is scoring. Everybody wants to score more, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, NCAA. People want to see more scoring, and so they're calling it that way. And so you've seen it some, but it also changes, it seems like, from crew to crew.
The one thing I'll say about the crew we had on Saturday, whether the calls were right or wrong, I'm not debating it. But there was that one guy he made every call in the game. Didn't he make like 85% of the call? And the guy with the red hair made like 3 whistles all game.
Yeah, it seemed that way. And I mean, there's going to be contact at some point in time. Now, whether the contact was a foul, whether the offense initiated a legal screen and things like that, but it is basketball. There's going to be contact at some point in time. And I just thought that there was contact that, hey, that's incidental contact. That's part of the game. You just let that go.
Do you see many times where you see an officiating crew where it seems like one guy calls like 80% of the fouls?
Well, it's always funny. That was, Ted Valentine. That was his deal, like right. TV Teddy. So, when
he was in the Duke, North Carolina game, and they had like 8 replays for the final 2 minutes through the end of overtime. Did you see that?
Yes. I didn't see it, the game, but
Valentine was always, let's go look at it.
Yeah, there's always going to be a point in time where Ted Valentine's going to go look at the monitor because he wants the TV to be focused in on him. So if it's something close and he has an opportunity to go to the monitor, he's going to the monitor because he knows that TV is going to be locked in on him. So
it was unbelievable because I'm driving home from our game and it's Duke and North Carolina, and I'm listening to it on satellite radio. And they just kept going to the monitor and going to the monitor. And every time the North Carolina guy, Ted Valentine is there standing. I was just like, what?
Yes, and he enjoys that. There's no question about it.
All right, so then you get one possession, down by 2. You got 5.7 seconds left, and Alex Caldwell brings the ball up the floor, and he brought it up swiftly, very quickly. Where we sit at the Show Me Center, it's just where I sit. There's an official that always is standing in front of me when they're in the half court. So I'm leaning out. I'm trying to see what's going on over in front of your bench because that's where the play is, and I can't really see it that clearly. So my only call was Alex fell down, the game is over, because I just saw him on the ground. Now, you had a better look at it, and you kind of thought, hey, maybe a whistle could have been initiated on that final play.
Yeah, there was no question to me that he got fouled. He probably could have went off the ball screen the other way with the way defender, and we showed him in film this morning that he started to go right, and that guy played him to the right. He needed to change direction and go left. But that's neither here or there. But when he did dribble to the sideline, he had Nigel Russell wide open behind him. He was trying to make that pass. So I thought he got fouled on 2 occasions. He got fouled trying to gather the ball and go up with it. Then he got fouled when he was trying to deliver the pass as well, too. Got hit on the arm both times. And I just thought it was clear as day.
Boy, and if you're trying to make your case at the end of a game, they just want to get off the floor. You can't even really get an explanation. You can get an explanation during the game, but when the game is over and that's a final play, it's hard to really get them to talk to you, right?
Yeah, my thing was he didn't just throw the ball into the ground, and the ball wasn't deflected. So there's a reason why the ball went into the ground. And so it's not hard to figure out. He was encumbered from doing that.
Had he been able to get the ball to Nigel, you probably like your chances with the way Nigel Russell was playing. I mean, he looked like an all-conference player on Saturday night. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing that's so frustrating. You've seen all of our games is like you'll have a game like that from a young man, and then the next game he disappears. We just need some consistency, but that's the type of player that Nigel Russell can be when he lets things come to him. I think sometimes he tries to force the issue, and when he forces the issue, it becomes like really hard and difficult because he's putting himself in tight spots. But I think when he lets the game come to him and he takes open threes and he makes one-directional drives instead of I always say, guys, just drive the ball in one direction. You don't need to go behind your back between the legs and things like that. You're so big and strong that there shouldn't be anybody to take you off of your cut where you're going. So I just think when he lets things come to him, he's a good player.
Boy, you look back now at these games where it literally could have been decided on the final possession. Tennessee State was a game like that. Murray State was a game like that. Eastern Illinois was a game like that. And Tennessee Tech. I mean, these are games that had one tiny, and not anything major, one tiny thing happened different. You win all four of those games.
Yeah, and our guys have got to start to understand that we can't put ourselves in these situations when you're at the end of the game. And we often show them the mistakes that lead up to that. I mean, obviously there's some things that happen down the stretch, and that's everybody's focus. But we've got to make sure that we're doing a better job of not putting ourselves in that situation. And just going back to the Tennessee Tech game, because it's the most recent occurrence of that, it all had to do with our start. If we don't have that type of a start, then I think we win that game commanding. But we've got to not put ourselves in those situations.
Boy, you know that you are frustrated as a head coach because we've seen it a handful of times this year where you just run 5 new guys to the scorer's table early in the game because you're like, that's it. I don't like what I'm seeing. Let's see if we can change things up. And you had to do that against Tennessee Tech because you started so slowly.
Yeah, and I told our team that's not something that we should have to do. I mean, we're doing that because we had to do it because we just can't continue to let teams score that many points in that short amount of time. And so you're looking for a change right there. But you think that you have the right guys out there to start. And so they've got to justify that. And so just the fact that we had to have a mass substitution at that early in the game because guys are not doing what they're supposed to do. It's not just one guy or two guys. It's everybody breaking down. Just like the lack of sense of urgency is the thing that was troubling to me.
Yeah, and just prior to you playing, the women played, and it was amazing. It was one of those defense optional first quarters because SEMO is a really good defensive team. But in the first 10 minutes, they play 4 quarters, obviously, in women's basketball. It was 30-26
Wow.
at the end of the first quarter. I mean, they're both shooting in the 70s. I think Tech was shooting in the 80s. SEMO had the lead. Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, that is unbelievable. 56 points in 10 minutes. You don't see that even at the men's level. You don't see that very often.
No. I mean, it's had to be shooting at a high clip and getting some great opportunities. So, I mean, you have to be able to defend, when you're not scoring on the offensive end. But you just got to play with some sort of urgency and some sort of tenacity to start off, and we just didn't do that.
Well, you certainly did on Thursday in your win over Jacksonville State. You beat them 76-72. At one point, you had an 18-point lead. So, sometimes people will say, okay, hey, you had an 18-point lead. You only won by 4. Well, I remember Gary Garner always used to say, well, let's talk about how they got the 18-point lead. Well, getting your 18-point lead, I'm not sure you could play a whole lot better during that stretch when you opened up an 18-point advantage.
Yeah, I thought we really played well, and it all started with our defense. I thought we were really active on the defensive end. We had some scouting report things that our guys did, and it was really specific to their personnel, and I thought they did a really good job with some of those things. But I thought the biggest thing was just our approach because Jacksonville State is always going to be a tough, physical, hard-nosed team. And if you're not willing to have that that same sort of mindset when you play them, then you're going to really struggle. But I thought our guys really didn't shy away from the physicality of the game and had a hit-first attitude, and that approach gave us an opportunity to be successful.
Because in the last few years, you haven't been super competitive with Jacksonville State because of how they play. Now, they may have had a more talented roster, but still, they play the same way under Ray Harper. Had you played Jacksonville State early in the season, would it maybe have been different? Or did it help that you played Murray State twice, Austin Peay twice? You know what it's like to be in a brawl-type atmosphere. Would you say had you played them early in the season, it may have been different had you not had hard-fought, slug-out games under your belt?
Yeah, I think you can just look at the difference between the first Murray State game and the second Murray State game. You talk about our guys. Hey, they always think it's not going to be them, that guy on the film that's getting punked out.
Right.
I mean, they always don't think that's them. And so, I'm not going to do that. But then when you play in Austin Peay, when you play in Murray State, now you have like, hey, especially when you play them the second time, because now when you show them film, it's not another team getting punked out. It's them. And you can show it to them and say, hey, this can't happen if we're going to have a chance of being successful. So I think there's no question when you play teams like Austin Peay and Murray State and then you play at Jacksonville State, it really helps you because now there's a reference point.
All right. You look at the way that things went for your offense, 17 points for Alex Caldwell in that game, 6 of 9 shooting. He really played well.
Yeah, I think Alex is a guy that's really starting to show some of the things that he can do for us on the offensive end because he's so talented, first of all, in transition because he can really blow the ball up the court. But he's always a threat to pull up for a jump shot or a three. But then he's really figured out how to manipulate the ball screen better. I thought that he really didn't do a good job of that early in the season. But it took some experience of him now being able to deal with things in tight spaces about making decisions because we always say when you come off a ball screen, and it's really an Americanized way to look at things, they teach us over here in America when you come off the ball screen that you're the number one option. Well, over in Europe, they teach you that you're the third option. So the first option is to throw the ball to the guy diving around the rim. The second thing is throwing the ball behind you, and the third thing is you scoring. And so Alex had to figure that out, that, hey, this is a ball screen not for you to score. It's for you to find other people first. And then if there's a bad breakdown on the other team, then you take advantage of that. But you're always looking at the guy diving and the guy behind you first. Then you look for yourself.
Alex, and we had him on this show, talked about how much he has worked on that runner that he's got because he needed to find a way to get shots away because when he gets in the lane because he's just not that big and, a lot of times he gets his shot blocked or he can't get it up toward the rim. What do you think about that? It looks like it's becoming a more of a weapon for him.
Yeah, there's a difference between being hard-nosed and being tough and being stubborn. And Alex is being stubborn because he continually went in there amongst the trees and tried to finish. Now, was he getting bumped or things like that? Of course he was. But they're not calling that. You're 155 pounds going up against 6'9", 6'10 guys. And so you had to figure out a way. You either got to get in there and jump stop and kick the ball out behind you, or you've got to get some sort of a floater or runner before you get to that point, kind of that in-between of being a pull-up jump shot and a layup. And so Coach Crump, who's a really similar player that he was when he was at Purdue, he was a guy that could really manipulate ball screens, get downhill with his quickness and speed, but wasn't big enough to finish around the rim. So he had that type of a game where it's a floater. And so Coach Crump has really worked with him as far as being able to understand the touch that you need and also how high you got to get an arc on that in order for that still to go down. So I just think those guys have worked tirelessly. But also, Alex, the big thing is he had to accept the fact that you can't go in there in those trees and try to finish. You're not getting that call.
Occasionally he finishes in there, and it's a spectacular play.
Yeah, but those are, it's to me, those are like not what you want to do all the time. It's going to happen sometimes because you got to be a threat to finish around the rim, but you also got to be smart enough to figure, hey, I'm going in against this guy. I'm probably need to get my floater on.
All right, Nigel went down the lane at one point, and it was, he came up and he was going to, just absolutely throw one down. He was a little too far. It was a Blake Griffin type where he tried to, right?
Yeah.
He tried to throw it rather than maybe jam it. So close. That may have been the highlight reel dunk of the year had he gotten that one. He was a little too far out, though.
I always like those 2 points. I always think those 2 points are really important. So he had a turn down of a ball screen baseline. He went in there and dunked it. To me, I always say, I know guys want to highlight plays, but to me, the most important thing is getting the 2 points. And sometimes getting fouled and then getting to the free throw line and getting those 2 points are just as important as a spectacular type play.
The Jacksonville State game, the guy that went in and had a wide open dunk and missed the dunk, and the ball went to half court, and they ended up losing the ball because they went back and touched it and it ended up going out of bounds. When was the last time you saw a missed dunk go to mid-court?
Well, I think we had a couple guys. I know when I was at Purdue, we had Juwan Johnson, who was an all-Big Ten performer, who was really light. He was 6'10", probably about 210 pounds, but he had so much power and velocity behind his dunks. I recall him doing that a couple times. But then I was also, when I was at Mississippi State, we had a kid named Craig Sword who missed one like that. Kind of took off from really far out and ended up missing it. He got fouled, but the ball went out that far.
So is there anything, there might be, but are there many more things frustrating than a coach than a guy all alone going up and missing a dunk?
Yeah, that's justifiable. You just come start working toward the scores table. Yeah, because you're coming out.
Walk on over.
Yeah.
Also in the game, 16 points for Skylar Hogan against Jacksonville State. Is that as good a game as he's had this year, in your opinion?
Yeah, there's no question about it. To me, we need Skylar and also Isaiah Gable to be able to make open shots for us. And I thought that both Isaiah and Skylar have been getting some really good quality looks at the rim from the three-point line. And you hate to put that type of pressure on them, but, hey, you've got to make those shots for us, especially when they're good looks. And I thought that both Skylar and Isaiah have not pressed the flesh on taking bad shots. They've done a really good job of finding open shots. But they've struggled with those opportunities, and I thought Skylar really gave us a lift because he knocked down some open shots, and then we ran a couple plays for him to come off some screening action, and he was able to make those off the cut. So we needed that from him.
Not only his best game, but, boy, he just looked as confident as he's looked all season.
Yeah, and it's also got a lot to do with that first shot for him. Sometimes that first shot goes and it gives him a ton of confidence, but it also works in reverse too. When he misses the first shot, it's like, oh, woe is me. And it's like, hey, man, just keep playing. I mean, you just play the percentages.
And Sage Tolbert played like a man in that game against Jacksonville State. I think all 14 of his points came after halftime. I think he was scoreless at halftime.
Yeah, and we need Sage. In games like that, when you're playing a physical team like a Jacksonville State or Murray State, if you don't have Sage Tolbert ready to, like, match that, you have no chance because he looks like the other guys.
Right.
If your guys that look like the other team don't perform like the other team, then you have no chance.
Darius Agnew has given you some minutes, Coach. I know. I know he's tough because he's out there. He's had meniscus surgery. He's had swelling after the surgery, but he's giving you a little time right now.
Yeah, and it's frustrating for him because he can't do some of the things he needs to do physically in order for him to be as explosive that he has. He's never been a big-time athlete, but sometimes he gets it around the rim and he's not able to quite explode up enough to get it over the rim in order to finish. But he's a guy with a big body. But I just love his approach. I mean, the way he's always talking, his enthusiasm. You just want to continue to give guys minutes like that. But unfortunately, that meniscus surgery really set him back.
UT Martin comes in on Thursday, and they are unique in the type of defense that they play.
Yeah, they play a matchup zone, and it's not just a traditional 2-3 zone. It's going to bend and move to what you do. And so what it almost ends up doing is like being a switching man-to-man at times. And so what you've got to do is you've got to get a ton of ball movement, but more importantly, player movement, and guys understanding what's open. And so there's got to be a mixture between zone concepts of like getting the ball into the high post in the short corner, which is what you want to do against a zone. But you can't do it with a zone offense because they'll just match up with it, and you'll never get anything out of it if you have your traditional stationary zone offense. So you got to get a mixture of zone offense and man offense, and so understanding guys what you're looking for. So the big thing I always tell our guys when we play them is you got to get into the paint, and so don't settle. So we got to make sure I always say when people play zone, the reason they're playing zone is because they can't guard you or they can't guard your action. And so when you go out and you play a zone and you start standing around and chunking threes, that's what the zone wanted you to do. And so you can't fall into that trap.
All right, before we get out of here, and you've got to head off recruiting, so you're going to take off. We're going to talk baseball with Andy Sawyers. An incident happened, or not an incident, but just a nice thing I think that a lot of people like to see happen over the weekend. And you kind of have ties on both sides. Royce Waltman, your coach at Indiana State, you were an assistant for Royce Waltman. He's a Bobby Knight guy. And then Indiana played Purdue, and you're a Purdue guy who played under Matt Painter, but Bobby Knight came back to Assembly Hall for the Indiana-Purdue game and was recognized before the game. He had not come back there in 20 years. He'd been stubborn about it. His former players had asked him to come, and some of them got angered because he never did, but he finally came back. I wanted to get your thoughts on Bobby Knight returning to Assembly Hall.
Well, it's great for them to see to repair that relationship. You know, by far, he's the most iconic coach ever in Indiana history. And so when you have so many great teams that he has been a part of because of his coaching, and to have guys like Isaiah Thomas there and your head coach not be there, the reason why they came to Indiana was not because of just Indiana. It was because of Indiana and Bob Knight. So to see that relationship be repaired and for him to come back, especially when you're playing a game that's as hotly contested in that rivalry with Purdue and Indiana, and to see Gene Katie there, and even Gene Katie got emotional about it between all the awards that they had when they were coaching. So I thought it was really good for him to get back on that campus and get recognized. But I don't know if you heard this or not, but he was talking to his son about whether he was going to do it, because Pat was really the guy who thrust the whole thing behind it, because Pat and Archie Miller have a relationship. And really, when you look at it, all the things that transpired and all the people that Coach Knight was mad at, they're either dead or not working there anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, it needed to be kind of smoothed over there. But the thing he asked Pat right before he agreed to do it, and I can't say the word there, but he says, are there going to be any a-holes there? And he says, if you can promise me there's not going to be any of those guys there, I'll come. And I think he was referring to one person in particular.
Sure, and you know, the bottom line is I kind of knew that you probably appreciate that scene in Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah, I think in all my college basketball, I mean, to me that's the most heated rivalry and the loudest that I've ever heard any game is when Indiana plays Purdue, whether it's in Mackey Arena or whether it's in Assembly Hall, it doesn't matter. So I've been to like the Cameron Crazies, I've been to Florida State, I've been to Wisconsin, Michigan State, I've been to all these different places, you know, Kentucky as a basketball coach, but it's never as loud as I've ever heard it during the Indiana Purdue basketball game, whether it's at any one of those venues.
Well, we appreciate your time today. You got to hit the recruiting trail. We will see you Thursday night at the Show Me Center for the game against UT Martin. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Safe travels.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's Coach Rick Ray. We are going to talk some Red Hawk baseball. Believe it or not, baseball starts in 4 days. And Coach Andy Sawyers is here. We will talk with the Red Hawks baseball coach when we come back on the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. on SEMO ESPN. continue recruiting for next year's squad. And now we're going to talk some Red Hawk baseball. Coach Andy Sawyer's here. I know to the fan base, they can't believe that opening day is Friday. For the coaches, does it feel different? Like, oh, no, we're ready for opening day.
Yeah, opening day couldn't get here fast enough for us. So, yeah, we've been waiting for this one for a while. But we've been blessed with good weather. Last year I felt like, for us in January as we prepare, we try to scrimmage 3 days a week, and you line it up and you scrimmage on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, so your pitching is lined up for the opening weekend. And last year it'd be 40s to 50s Tuesday through Thursday, and I feel like it was 25 degrees every weekend last year.
Like we could have played Wednesday.
Yeah, but the pitching's not there, right? But this year we've had great weather on the weekends. We had good weather yesterday and finished up kind of our last preseason scrimmage. So we've been fortunate with good weather and been able to get the work we need in, and so we're ready.
I was looking at the weather forecast in Monroe. It's like 67 today, but it's supposed to be 49 on Friday, like 55 on Saturday, 40% chance. And then in the 60s Sunday, 40% chance of rain.
So I think it's rained in 10 of the last 12 days in Monroe, Louisiana.
Wow.
And so they're wet right now, and they've got a natural surface. So
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's a grass surface, so they're a little bit underwater. And so, just in terms of the logistics of college baseball, so when we go travel someplace, we'll always get there and practice the night before on Thursday night. And, sometimes late in the year that may or may not be important, But for right now, especially for us, because we haven't been on a grass surface since last year, we really need that Thursday practice because we want to get our infielders, fielding some balls on the grass and getting back used to the dirt. And we may not have the opportunity. So right now we're working on a plan B that maybe we can work out in Memphis on the way down to Monroe. Just because we need to be on a natural surface, we need to get ground balls. Our outfielders need to pick the ball up off the grass, and it's just, you may not think it's a big difference, but it really is. You get so used to such consistent hops on the artificial surface. You get the ball that goes from the grass to the hard clay, usually picks up speed, like if you hit an overspin ground ball. And so we're kind of making alternate arrangements if they're underwater on Thursday.
Well, I guess the big question that everyone who's a Red Hawk baseball fan wants to know, how healthy are you? Because that was the overriding theme of last year. You could not get healthy, especially with your key guys.
Yeah, and right now the guys we need on the field, they're on the field. And so that's been a big lift. Last year we were nowhere near as offensive as we thought we were starting the year. And so far I think we scrimmaged 8 times in January. And early February, we hit 14 home runs in 8 scrimmages.
What's wrong with your pitching staff?
Well, Justin Durden hit 500 and Tyler Wilbur hit 500, and granted, when you scrimmage, you get to face the best pitchers and the guys who are maybe not going to throw as many innings. So it was good to see the ball going over the fence again and seeing some of those guys, the physical guys in the middle of the order, that weren't there last year, Durden and Staus and Blazovic. They all had nice, call it like a spring training for college baseball. It's not really spring, it's January, it's winter training. But those guys all had good, we probably got between 30 and 40 at-bats for most of our guys. They all had a good run there, and so I'm excited to kind of have the middle of the order look like the middle of the order it should be.
Well, the middle of the order, you can make an argument. We'll see how Justin Durden bounces back. Sounds like he looks pretty good. Preseason All-American. I mean, just one. I mean, if it's him and Kevin Stroshine, probably the two best sluggers in the league, and Durden misses basically the whole year with an injury. Tyler Wilbur, your shortstop, won the OVC batting title. He's back. So if you're talking Tyler Wilbur, Justin Durden on paper, there might not be a better 3-4 if you bat them 3-4 in the conference.
I think they're the best 1-2 punch, in terms of a right-left 3-4 middle of the order combination in the league. Tyler Wilbur, it's been kind of amazing. He's almost reinvented himself. Last year, Tyler's from California. He's a typical California hitter, very handsy, very high, very high bat-to-ball skills, right? Doesn't swing and miss, doesn't strike out, uses the whole field. But he only hit 2 home runs, and he has worked extremely hard. I mean, he's always had the strength. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. It's not like he's weak, but he just didn't know how to leverage the ball and get it in the air. And he's done that so far. He's really done a nice job. And I think not only is he going to hit for a very high average like he did last year when he won the OVC batting championship, I think he's going to slug. And he hit a, it was yesterday we were scrimmaging. It was under 40 degrees and it's not warm and the wind's not blowing out of the south and he hits a line drive opposite field home run that like was a no doubt about it. And it's like that guy was not doing that thing a year ago. And then, Justin Durden comes in and gets 3 hits and drives in 4 runs. So I just feel happy to have, kind of the lineup back to where we thought we had it, because we thought we were going to have a pretty good offense last year. And we got off to a really good start before some of those guys started missing time.
I mean, when Blazovic went down, he was leading the league in runs batted in.
That's right. And so I just happy to have those guys back and looking forward to what they can do for us. And, if you have 2 elite hitters, they make each other better. Last year Tyler Wilbur got pitched around pretty significantly because he was the one threat we had. And you put Tyler Wilbur in the order with Justin Durden behind him, I think it's going to mean a lot more fastballs for Tyler Wilbur. So I think those 2 guys are going to feed off each other, and I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Danny Wright is back. He is a veteran player. He's a former freshman All-American, and, man, that guy has been battling injuries, and when he wasn't injured, I mean, he was under the weather. I mean, just what do you foresee for Danny Wright, because he is a guy that has a high ceiling?
Yeah, so Danny Wright, when healthy, is an SEC caliber player. He hasn't been healthy since his freshman year, and his performance, obviously, his freshman year, he hits .375 with 5 home runs, leads the team in hitting as a true freshman. That's a pretty elite type guy. And then you transfer, fast forward to his junior year where he hits .260 with no home runs. I mean, obviously there's a pretty significant difference in his health. I think Danny Wright's as healthy as he's been in 2 years. He's not 100%. He's not who he could have been if he never began to have the back issues. But, last year he couldn't pull the baseball. When you watch, he's literally couldn't get the ball in the air to right field. And
he's a switch hitter.
Yeah, he's a switch hitter. And, we played yesterday. Again, it was 38 degrees. We're scrimmage, and he pulls a home run to right field up into the new deck. So, he's doing things we haven't seen him do for 2 years. And, we had a scrimmage this fall where he had home runs from both sides of the plate. And so he's
Carlos Baerga.
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, you haven't seen Danny do that for 2 years. And so, obviously, with him, it's just kind of a matter of us managing his workload. We give him days off, additional days off. Everybody gets 1 day off a week, mandated by the NC2A. But Danny Wright gets more than that. If it's you like to think every practice is super important, but for Danny, not every practice is as important as others. So there's days where we give him off. We don't ask him to practice. He might come in and hit off the tee prior to practice, and then he shuts it down and puts on his running shoes, and he coaches the outfielders with us. He does some things like that to hopefully we can manage him as best as possible and keep him on the field more this year than we have in the past.
You had the best defensive third baseman in the Ohio Valley Conference last year, or the last 2 years. I mean, and it wasn't even close. Alex Nielsen was just an elite college defender. So there's a hole over there. What are we going to see?
Well, I think a name that Red Hawk fans are going to be familiar with, little Peyton Leeper, Hunter Leeper's younger brother.
Yeah. Now, Hunter was a player.
Yeah, well,
he almost played every position in one game.
He did.
Yeah, Coach Beezer were playing. I think we were playing at Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was late in the season. They'd already locked everything up, and so he decided, because Bees was a utility guy, and so the last guy that we could see that played all 9 positions in a 9-inning game was Buster Posey at Florida State. So he said before the game that he was going to try and get Hunter, at every position, but I think he only played 7 of the 9. He didn't end up playing all 9, but every inning was okay. Where's Hunter going to be this inning? And he just didn't play pitcher or catcher in that game.
It's funny how stories grow, because when I heard that story, I heard that he did. So they didn't. No. They neglected to tell me that he didn't get to pitch or catch.
He did not.
But Hunter's younger brother, Peyton, he's a gifted young man, switch hitter. But more so than that, he's got a father who was tough on him growing up. He's got an older brother who played Division I baseball, so he's got a feel for the game and how hard it is to play this game right at a high level. And he is talented, but he's talented and he's mature for a baseball player. He's not the typical freshman. He didn't come in expecting he's going to hit 500 like he did in high school. He understands it's going to be harder, and he's just done a very nice job.
He's a freshman?
He's a true freshman.
Okay.
True freshman. He'll play opening day at third base, and he's not Alex. You only saw Alex Nielsen as a junior and a senior, so he's not Alex Nielsen as a junior or senior. But I bet you he's every bit of what Alex Nielsen was as a freshman in college. And again, he's a pretty physical young man. He's strong. I think I've been told I didn't get to see Hunter early in his career, but I've been told he's stronger and more physical than his brother at the same age. And He had 2 big knocks for us yesterday, and he's earned the opportunity to play opening day as a freshman. So I think our fans are going to like him. He's a tough little nut.
All right, so if you've got we know Danny Wright's in center and Justin Durden will anchor right field. Who's in left field?
There are probably 3 guys vying for those opportunities in left field. Andrew Keck, who played a little bit of outfield last year as a freshman, then kind of had to catch every single game when Wade Stouse redshirted with his concussion. Andrew Keck is going to get time in left field. He had a really good spring or January period, hit close to 400 and with some doubles. Andrew Keck deserves opportunities. A new player, Caleb Fiersteak, who's a Canadian, a left-hand hitter who's really gifted athletically. He could play a really good center field. He can run. He's physical. He's a little bit raw as a baseball player, but super talented. And then we have a senior who just hasn't got as many at-bats because I say we're healthy, like everybody. We have some minor type dings and nicks, and Peyton Faulkner, who's a senior. Peyton has missed a bunch of time in January because he's had a little bit of a nagging shoulder deal, but he should be good to go for the season, but hasn't got to get as many at-bats in January. So those 3 guys, Andrew Keck and Caleb Fiersteak and Peyton Faulkner, they're all going to be in the mix for at-bats in left field.
Well, Wade Stouse, I think, hit 7 home runs, and they were long home runs. As a freshman, battled the concussion last year, and I think he got a red shirt, right? Mm-hmm. Will we see him behind the plate?
Yeah, Wade has won the job, and the thing that I'm most happy about Wade, Wade is a guy that hit 8 home runs as a true freshman, but as a true freshman, I think he struck out 50 times and hit around 200. So obviously, the damage to contact ratio was really high, but there wasn't enough contact as a true freshman. But Wade has done a really good job working to limit his strikeouts and get the ball in play. He may not hit a ton more home runs, like he's cut down the swing more, but if he hits 285 with 8 to 10 home runs and gets the ball in play, he's going to drive in more runs because there was a lot of strikeouts as a freshman. But his biggest improvement has been his throwing of the baseball. He is throwing the baseball the best he's ever thrown, like really, really nice.
And if you look at what I've seen with Louisiana Monroe and what their coach says, they're gonna be small ball because their 2 big home run hitters graduated. They're thinking about sacrifice and stealing bases. So he's probably going to get tested this weekend.
He definitely will, and he's thrown the ball so far. He's thrown the ball very, very well. And that's a big improvement from where he was as a freshman year. And last year, obviously, he didn't get to play. But he's made some really good progress defensively. And so we're pleased with that. So you'd see Wade Stouse behind the plate. Austin Blazovic, returning starter from a year ago, who's having a really good year before he got sidelined with a broken hand. He'll be the guy at first base start there. We have got a freshman who led us in RBIs in the fall, which is the fall, I understand. But then he went around, he's leading us in home runs right now. We have a freshman named Lincoln Andrews who can really, really hit. He's a 6'4", 215-pound left-hand hitter, and he's got some juice. He's a first baseman by trade, probably DH a lot as a true freshman, but he's had a good spring for us offensively. And then, Connor Bosler, senior, and then Tyler Wilbur up the middle.
All right. Let's talk about the pitching. You've got 2 starters back, Dylan Dodd, Noah Nisnik, guys that, had really Dylan was better early maybe than late. Maybe fatigue set in on a long Division I season, and Noah Nisnik was among the league leaders in earned run average as a freshman.
Yeah, so we had two lefties last year in the rotation that gave us pretty good goes as the year. Dylan Dodd was a guy that he was a two-way player in junior college and then, played summer ball both years and never took a break. And I just think that it was just general. He was 90, 93 early, and by the end of the year it was more 88 to 90. But I also think for him, he was a young man that had got by with a fastball and a really good changeup, and he'd really yet to develop a good breaking ball. And I just feel like as a starter at the Division I level, we kind of say you need a pitch for each time through the order. If you've got a really good fastball, you can go through the order one time with just a really good fastball. To go through the order a second time, you need a second pitch. And if you're going to navigate a batting order 3 and 4 times, you need to have a third pitch. And Dylan, as a junior with us, he really struggled with the breaking ball. He didn't really have 3, but he was a 2-pitch guy. And so, there's a statistic called the times through the order penalty. And basically what they found, and the numbers are major league numbers, but basically most pitchers, their ERA goes up a run for each time they go through the order. So it's the second time through the order, their ERA is a run higher, and the third time through the order, it's a run higher. And he was a guy that had a very significant times through the order penalty just because he didn't have that breaking ball he can go to. Well, that's been his entire focus during the offseason and during the fall and the winter, and he's really made some improvements to the slider. And so I'm hopeful that not only will he get off to a good start because he's fresh and he's healthy, I'm hopeful that he, instead of being a 5 and fly guy where he gives you a lead and gets you to 5, but now you've got to get 12 outs out of the bullpen. I'm hoping he can give you 7 or 8, and now it's a 3-out save instead of, hey, we've got to find a way to get 4 innings done on a close Friday night game. And we're hopeful that addition of the third pitch is going to make the difference for him.
It looks like Louisiana Monroe lost their 2 best RBI guys, their big home run guys, middle of the order guys, so they don't have as many position players coming back. I think they have 17 newcomers on their team. And they do have a lot of pitching coming back. They lost their ace, but I think they've got their number 2 and number 3. They finished in 5th place in the West Division of the Sun Belt. They went 12-17, but just stunned everybody as they ran through the tournament, the Sun Belt tournament. It was down at Coastal Carolina. And they knocked off 3 straight teams to make it to the championship game. I mean, 3 straight wins, and then they lost twice to Coastal Carolina, who was hosting it, and ended up winning the tournament. Coastal Carolina, who won the national championship a few years back. So they had a big run at the end of the season, but it looks like they're going to have a lot of new faces, but they will have some pitchers back.
Coach Federico, it's be his 3rd year there. He got hired. It's summer. You get hired late in the summer. Kind of that first recruiting class is going to be junior college heavy. Well, that first recruiting class for them is now graduated and moved on, and so they've kind of stayed with the junior college model, and so it's they're going to have a lot of junior college players. I was
looking at their roster, man. They're loaded with JUCO guys.
So they've gone that route, and that's like everything else, nothing's guaranteed, but you're going to have guys who, while they're older in age and in class, they're going to have a lot of guys. It's their first Division I experience this weekend. So I like the fact that we've got a ton of innings in our 2 left-handed starters, and we've got a lot of guys with significant Division I at bats. I mean, we are going to play 2 freshmen opening day. We're going to start. We're going to start Peyton Leeper at 3rd, and Lincoln Andrews is going to DH. But outside of the 2 freshmen, we've got a lot of guys. Danny Wright and Connor Bosler have got well over 100 starts and hundreds of at bats, and Wilbur and Durden are primetime guys. I'd like to think we're going to have, at least in terms of experience, we should have a level of composure that sometimes you don't have on opening day.
All right, in college baseball, the guy that comes in first out of the bullpen to try and keep things, hold a lead or keep things in check, that guy is big. Well, you lost a couple of guys that you had in that role last year, and then you lost your closer.
Yeah.
How does that look? How does middle relief and late innings look right now?
Maybe there's one thing. I thought we had a really good January. The one thing that if I was disappointed in, I didn't feel like we got a lot of clarity or separation in roles. And that's something that last year we weren't able to get as much due to some guys not being healthy, not being out there, like Christian Vick. But that was my big thing, is I wanted to have more clearly defined roles at starting the season. And we're not quite there yet. We had some guys that had some really good runs. A young man named Hayden Malenfant is a new pitcher. He's a young man from Ontario, Canada, by way of Southeastern Junior College in Iowa. Just had a great 3-start stretch there in January and actually led our team, was better than Dylan Dodd and Noah Nisnik in whip, was better than them in first pitch strike percentage, better than them in opponent's batting average against. Had a really, really good run. A new player, Michael Honacki. Honacki is a young man that went to Bradley University on scholarship out of high school and then suffered injuries, never was healthy, threw 3 innings in his first 2 years, and then transferred and finally has gotten healthy. And he's been inconsistent at times for us because he hasn't pitched for so long. He was hurt his senior in high school. He hadn't pitched for 3 years basically. But the stuff has been good. Our guys have a hard time hitting him. Sometimes his command wobbles. I think that's just time and reps. Brian McNeely had a really good summer for the Catfish, was the Prospect League Pitcher of the Year, had a nice freshman year, through 25 innings for us out of the bullpen and sometimes starting on Tuesdays. He's a guy that we shut down in the fall because he threw so many innings in the summertime. He's been kind of a little bit slow coming back from his layoff, but he's a guy with experience. And so we have some guys we like, but it's probably going to be a work in progress with who the roles are the first weekend. We've got 4 games on the road. We've got 3 at Monroe. Then we play Tuesday at the University of Kentucky. And we're probably going to be a little bit mix and match for those first 4 games just to kind of get some guys experience and see how they adapt. If you're a junior college starter, you've never pitched out of the bullpen, how do you react when you come in with runners on base if you've always started the game with a clean inning, for example? And so it's going to take a little bit for us to get those roles ironed out. But I do feel like we have the guys with the ability to get the job done.
I haven't looked. Kentucky has been a nationally ranked program the last few years. Are they ranked?
They're not ranked right now, no.
But they have been ranked
Yes.
pretty consistently the last few years. I mean, this is going to be a good team you play on.
Yes,
Tuesday.
and they have very good offense. They lost most of their pitching, but they have a lot of guys in their lineup back, and it's going to be a really offensive unit. So,
and maybe the best stadium you'll play in all year.
yeah, they just spent $50 million 2 years ago. So I venture to say it's probably better than most of the parks in the OVC.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see Jacksonville's, as a matter of fact, and people are going to be excited that the University of Missouri is going to come back here. I think it's like the first time in 13 years, something. I don't know. I did the math when we had you on the Sports Huddle a few weeks ago. But Steve Beazer is going to bring the University of Missouri down here. The previous coach said he would never come back to SEMO after they walked him off in consecutive years. But the University of Missouri coming to Cape Girardeau. I know they have at least one tailgate. I think the Tuesday game will be a tailgate. The Wednesday is like a 4 o'clock start. But that's going to be nice and fun.
I like our schedule this year. Our non-conference series, 3 of the 4 series we play are against MAC schools. I think that's pretty comparable for us. Those are good games and competitive games. And we have 3 SEC games on Tuesdays. And then just the typical, Arkansas State, SLU, Carbondale, trip to Memphis, trip to Missouri State. I think it's a pretty good schedule and very competitive. And I know our guys are excited for opening day. Couldn't get here fast enough.
And the upgrades at Kappaha are all done. And they weren't done. We had a muddy hillside and the whole thing. And the only difference is this year there will be an admission charge at SEMO games. So that'll be, for those who have not heard, that might surprise some people when they come to the ballpark. But it's only $5, and I think the season tickets are like $49 for 32 games. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not a math major, but I think that's fairly affordable. But our administration it's something they felt like we needed to do to try to obviously help keep funding the improvements and the investments we're making in the program and the infrastructure. But I thought they took care to make it as least painful as they possibly could on our fans. And I don't think that if you're talking about 32 home games for $49. I think that's a pretty remarkably low cost of entertainment right there.
And the brand new state-of-the-art indoor hitting facility, all computerized with all of the latest technology. How much is that going to not only help your guys, but also help recruiting new guys?
One, it's helped us tremendously. One of the more challenging things is obviously when we turfed Kappaha, obviously the turf in this, obviously it's been raining here for what seems like, weeks. That's a blessing to have the turf and be able to be outside and things like that. But in the construction process, they took down the old cages and then they didn't put them back up. And so that was always a challenge for us in trying to run an efficient practice and get a lot of stuff done. It's like if you don't have a batting cage, that's tough, right? Yep. I mean, every high school has a batting. I mean, Jackson High School has indoor cages. Notre Dame has indoor. We didn't have batting cages at the field. So that was always a challenge for us in trying to get the amount of swings that we needed to get and also get them done efficiently. But so just that piece is just obviously a welcome relief and addition for our guys to have that. But it's a really cool space. I mean, from a recruiting standpoint, when you take recruits there and they see that, I mean, kids shop with their eyes. 18-year-old young men, they're going to shop with their eyes, and it's a place that not only is it really functional and is all directed towards player development, so that resonates with them because they can see themselves getting better and taking advantage of those resources. It looks really cool too. It's got the caliber of finish that we were able to do and how we were able to design it. It just looks fantastic. And so just everybody that we've taken down there has just been blown away. Like, this is so nice. We can't believe that SEMO built this. Like, yeah, well, we should. We're pretty good. We should have something nice. So it's been great and early returns. From recruits, but also our players. I think 18, 22-year-old men, I know I was this way when they're a little bit too cool for school with stuff, right? They don't ever want to be too impressed. That's not cool, right? But our guys are beyond grateful and pleased and they take great care of it. They're always picking it up and they vacuum it, like they're really proud of it, which I think if you see, 19-year-old kids who are taking that much care and taking care of something like that, they're grateful. So we're very pleased with it.
All right, we're going to get on the bus, 8 a.m. on Thursday?
8 a.m. on Thursday right now. We're planning on driving to Monroe to practice, but you may see a curveball thrown in there. We might be going to Memphis to get in some grass and get some practice in if Monroe says they're underwater. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if that were me, a little gamesmanship. Yeah, it's too wet, Coach. You don't get to practice on Thursday. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're headed to Memphis to practice on Thursday.
You've got to head that off at the pass. All right, we'll see you Thursday. Can't wait for the season to get started, Coach. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
That's Coach Andy Sawyers, Red Hawks and Louisiana Monroe. Then it will be Friday, Saturday, Sunday down in L.A. Thanks to Coach Sawyers, Coach Ray as well. Stay tuned. ESPN Radio coming up. We'll be in the Jackson location next Monday. Hope you'll join us. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. So long from Wings, etc.